We are on to section 5. And this is a section that I really genuinely enjoy because it combines a lot of the topics that we've been doing into this one thing, and it's all real-world type problems. And I really enjoy that about when you can get real math stuff rather than just in the classroom. So in the problems that we're dealing with today, the key words that we always have to be identifying, and we might have talked about this already this year, but of in mathematics means multiplication, and is in mathematics means equal to. So in the sentence, the first thing we always want to do is underline the keywords of and is, and then create a mathematical sentence out of that. So what number is 30% of 85? Well, we have some keywords already here. We have is right there, and we have of right there. Well, we know is equal to, and we know that of is multiplication. The other thing that we can figure out is when we see something like what number, something like this, that means that's what we're looking for, so that means there's a variable. So we get x, what number, is 30%. Well, we turn this into a decimal, so we do 0.30, or 0.3 would be fine. 0.30 times 85. Well, now we have a math sentence, and we have our x by itself, so all we have to do in this problem is do 0.3 times 85, which is 25.5. Now, to check our work, we have to read the sentence back with the x inside it and see if it makes sense. So we talked about yesterday or in the previous video about how if it's under 50% or if it's near 25% or whatever you're looking for, there should be some type of common sense stuff in there. Well, we know 30% is like a fourth, so it should be less than half. So it's 25.5 is 30% of 85. Well, half of 85 would be a little bit more than 40, and this is less than that. This makes sense to me. Okay, so we'll try the one on the bottom. Keywords again. Of and is. Of is multiplication. Is an equal sign. And the what, well, that's our x. So now we have 24% turns into 0.24. 121 stays. And now we have the x by itself, so we just have to type it into the calculator. 0.24 times 121 gets us 29.04. And now once again, we just reread the sentence and see if it makes logical sense. 24% of 121 is 29.04. Well, 24% is about a fourth, and this number looks to be about a fourth of that one. So that makes logical sense. Okay, so this top one is the same idea. Is and of, equal sign, 0.35 times 75, and this is our x. Since our x is by itself, we can just multiply 0.35 times 75, 26.25. Okay, and this is kind of the last stress of if the x is already by itself, x equals. You don't have to do anything. You just have to multiply out the numbers on the opposite side. But like this problem we have on the bottom, sometimes the x isn't always by itself. So we key the of and we key the is. This is multiply. This is equal to. So we get 0.65. Well, now our x is over here equals 85. Well, this time our x is not alone. So I'm going to rewrite this sentence so it's a little bit easier to read. So now we have to get that x by itself. Well, the 0.65 and the x are next to each other, and 0.65 is being multiplied times the x, so we have to divide. Hopefully this looks pretty familiar. And now the x is alone, but we got to figure out what 85 divided by 0.65 is. And that's 130.77. Now, key like all these other problems, we should read this back to ourselves and see if it makes sense. 65% of 130-ish is 85. Well, it should be greater than half because 65 is above 50%. And that looks to be above 130 or half of 130. So that does seem to make a little bit of sense here. Okay? Try these two on your own and see what you get. Okay, this one was a little bit tricky, which is okay. Oven is. So we get x times 55 equals 102. We have to divide by 55 on both sides. And so we get x equals, whoa, don't do that, don't do that. 102 divided by 55 is 1.85. Now, some of you probably caught it, but that's our decimal, and the question wanted what percent. So we have to turn this into a percentage, which means it's 185% is our actual answer here. Got to be careful with that. Doesn't happen very often. Just got to watch when it's asking for a percent or when it's asking for a decimal. Okay? Down here on the bottom, this one was a little bit more like what we had been doing. So we get 0.54 times x equals 155. So we have to do 0.54, 0.54, and $287, about right on the nose. And that is our answer for these two. Okay, if you have questions, make sure you ask me on those. One quick story problem. Adrian Peterson ran for 2,105 yards last season. If he is going to run for 85% of that number this season, because that was a record-breaking season, it's unlikely for a running back to continue to set records every year. So he's going to run for 85% of that number. How much will that be? What's important here is we have to create our own mathematical sentence to figure out what we're looking for. So 85% of that number. Well, that number is 2,105. So it has to be 85% of 2,105, and that number will equal this season. So we have created, whoa, if I can spell, we've created our own mathematical sentence. Well, now we've identified the keywords here, and I already fixed that one. So we get 0.85 times 2,105 is equal to this season, which we're looking for, and that should be our x. Well, we just need to multiply this out. And the big question before I push enter here is, should this number be bigger or smaller than 2,105? And I hope you know that the answer should be, it should be smaller. And that looks 1,789, which is still a very good season. And we don't want to put decimals in yardage for the NFL because they don't count decimals. But that's still a good season, but it's a little bit more realistic. All right, I really like this section. There's a couple things to work on online. If you have questions, make sure you ask me.